Okay, it's no longer.
Hello. We're here.
We are here. Okay, we are here. We have been transported into the AB portal.
Yeah, into the AB zone
AB zone, because we had to go through the AB portal
to
to get to
get
get.
to the AB zone.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow. Okay, so lots of transporting. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Bianca.
How's it going? How's it going?
It's good.
Okay.
Weird.
Okay.
Weird.
Weird is I'm mad I didn't even flinch because I was like weird and I was like, yeah, that's typical.
Weird's normal. It is
Weird's
normal.
normal.
I mean, but like, I don't know if anyone else it's just like yesterday felt like a weird day because of the eclipse.
Yeah, it is. It's so interesting this everyone being on this shared in this shared moment too. Also, it's like, what do you do? You're just staring up at the sky for.
I mean, I read that like a lot of the native people in around the U.S. and Colorado where I am are like you go inside, you cover your windows, and you like give the sun respect and you meditate. It's like
Wow.
whoa,
Okay. Well, I
okay.
think a lot of people did not follow that.
I don't think so.
Not at all. Not at all. Lots of it's but what's actually interesting too is that the last one was about what we were talking 7 years ago. 7 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time to just experience. But it feels like it was so long ago, but also like yesterday. And even just seeing how things shift over the years, it's kind of wild
Mhm.
to be like, oh, this was 7 years ago, or this was 10 years ago, or this was 15 years ago. I would
Yeah.
say,
I was thinking, I think the last eclipse was the first time I met my now brother-in-law. Like it was early on dating the person I now am married to with a child. And like we went out to we didn't go all the way to totality, but we just like went north where it'd be more and went on a hike. And like that was the beginning of my relationship that is now like the centerpiece of my entire life, which is kind of wild.
wow. And I think that's like the shifting piece. I'm trying to think 7 years ago, 7 years ago, I didn't even live where I live now. So yeah, 7 years ago, I was still in the Bay. Or actually, was I in the Bay? Yes, I was still in the Bay. Um,
2017 would have been that number,
yeah,
right?
so I was,
Seven years.
yeah, I was in the Bay, been living in the Bay for lots of years. So, but you definitely were starting to see a shift in the energy of the Bay Area during that time. But I would say that was like I was in the Bay. I think one of my friends at the time like had was having a baby. Even that's like so trippy, which is like that kid is
That
now.
baby's 7 years old now.
I know. So that is like so wild. And even this concept of time, right? And what we thought
Time, man. It's crazy.
time. What is time? But even this concept of time that 7 years ago, your wife wasn't, well, your now wife, she wasn't really a conversation yet, right? She wasn't like, oh, this is now my wife, but like now it's like, oh, this is my wife. Or 7 years ago, I'm like, the Bay Area. And that was just where I lived and what I did. And that today that looks different. And yeah, I mean, even us being at Twilio, I wasn't like, ooh, Twilio, right? At the time. So
I
I think,
had, yeah, I had just finished my like run of working at startups and like building like entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. Like that was like there, and it was like a transitional phase for me from there.
yeah, even I think the other thing too about that blast from the past too is that what you were thinking about, what you were building, what you were even curious about. And I think even the beautiful thing about tech is how much you could see the progression of what we had available, what the biggest topics were, what people were excited about. So I even think that evolution is so it's so cool to watch at times.
Yeah. I can't even remember what the thing was. Like, what was the tech thing 7 years ago that people cared about? I can't remember. Can you?
Yeah, I think about what was more like I think definitely 2014, 2015, lots of, the new IPOs, like, the
Mhm.
IPOs, different companies. I think that was like a deep era.
it was like the companies that had made it out of 2009, out of that crisis, were like becoming like bigger and more mature.
Yeah, so I think a lot of those companies were at a nice inflection point, and then you had I call it the second round of those companies that were like, "Wait, wait, let's get in on this too." So I do think you definitely saw companies evolving, but it also was just a different climate too for startups and but it's kind of interesting because right now a lot of folks are like, "Oh, like it's a hard time to be building." But we've always said that, right? Like every couple of years, I feel like there's that same message of, oh, it's so hard, but people are still building things. And I think what you build ends up looking different, but it doesn't mean that you can't build. So yeah, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's an interesting point of like, yeah, what it meant to be a startup. I feel like 7 years ago was probably like the peak of like the lean startup craze. Maybe like towards the end of the peak of the lean startup craze. Like it was like very much like that vibe of like entrepreneurship for everybody. Um, and it was really exciting. I mean, that's when I was in it, right? I my
Mhm.
first startup was in 2014, and then I tried a few different things for a few years after that. So like, or maybe 2013 even, can't remember. Um, but like it was definitely a time where there was like a little more, felt like there was like a little more hubs around startups and like a little more there. And I think it probably was different for you. I very consciously avoided the Bay Area in my startup journey. I was just like, I'll go visit, but that's not the place that I want to be trying to do my thing, just because that's the only culture. And I actually liked being, for my startup world, most of the time I was in Chicago, and it was fun being somewhere that like the startups was like such a new and special energy there that they were trying to
Mhm.
foster. So it was a little different than um, like the Bay Area, where it's like that is the culture.
Yeah. I think there was definitely a balance. I think as you were mentioning this aspect of community, definitely throughout that kind of era, there was more of a push around building together, community, what are you doing? And I did really appreciate that rise of community that started to form, and especially at a time where folks were, yes, seeing these mega companies, they were seeing these large companies scale, and then they were like, wait, how can we do that? And so I love the culture of inspiration, that culture of building. And I do think yeah, it was what kind of the era maybe needed, and even how it sparked other geographies to also focus on, well, what does our ecosystem look like? What does our building ecosystem look like? What is our
Hmm.
entrepreneurial system? So I think that was kind of like a cool time period, but it's kind of interesting to see how what was needed then might not necessarily be needed now, and like what are the new needs, right? Of these different
Yeah,
ecosystems.
it is very different. Did you go straight from the Bay Area to Atlanta, or did you stop over in New York first?
New York,
Okay.
always, always the New Yorker. Actually, I went to Spain first. I needed to like find myself after being in the Bay for almost a decade. So I had a very like, wow, this was too much on my spirit. So I was like, let me just go to Spain for a few months. And that's what I did. And then I was like,
Nice.
I don't wanna go back to the Bay, and that the Spain was just like Spain knocked some sense extra sense into me, and I think that's what happened. I love the Bay, I forever, like, will love the Bay, but I think the my personal journey was like, "Okay, Bay Area, this is great, and now what?" And made a pit stop to New York, but I will say what's been really cool about being outside of that Bay Area energy bubble is that you have a different sense of how the world lives. And when I say how the world lives, not from a place of, I was so disconnected from society, but I do think not everyone is passionate about technology around the country. Some folks are like, what is this? What are y'all building? You're messing up my life. AI is coming to take my jobs. And I think being in a space where not everyone has the same enthusiasm about innovation is helpful. And so I even think just being in an environment that forces you to see the world a little differently, which has just been super helpful.
Yeah, there's definitely especially in the Bay Area, and I feel like we're ragging on it. San Francisco's so cool. I love that city. The people who live there and make it there are typically hustlers and very intelligent people. So like, I got family out there. It's great. Um, but I do hear you. It feels like, so. Speaking of 7 years ago, I feel like we were right in the heart of like, let's not care about how much money we're making. Let's focus on like how much adoption we can get. Like how
Mm-hmm.
many people can we get on board? And it
Yeah.
was almost, it felt like that a lot. But then being in Chicago, all of the like VCs and money in Chicago didn't really follow that. So Chicago is this little microcosm, at least for me, and I'm sure it was like this in other places, maybe more so outside of the Bay Area for sure, where like it wasn't about adoption. It's like, do you have a business model that makes sense? Like, not just can you get a bunch of eyeballs and get a bunch of data and then, build the next Facebook or whatever. It was, can you, like, does this business model make sense on a unit economics basis? Are you making money? And it kind of forced some focus, including like, one of my startups was like, we were going really well with getting a lot of people in adoption, but then like as soon as we tried to monetize, it kind of flopped. And had we been in the Bay Area, we might have been able to convince ourselves that we can raise money and keep going without doing any sort of monetization, but we weren't. And so we didn't. And I think that it was probably the right move. I don't think it was like a super viable business at the time. So like, there's just like that whole, I don't know where I was going with that, but I was just like reflecting on the vibes of like being in a place where people aren't just, as you said, caring about tech, but like caring about other elements of business and what you can do there.
Yeah, I think as you're talking, it brings up even this idea around how much do you balance the operational, but also the dreaming, the thinking big. And I think, like, what does that balance look like? Because I do think there can be an emphasis or a focus on the business, we have to monetize this, this has to make us money, but are you going to create space to delight your users? Are you going to test out some experiments that might not necessarily look the greatest on paper? So I do think, what does that balance look like? And I do think in different geographies, different things are more incentivized. So it's kind of interesting to even get a sense of, for Chicago or for maybe New York or for Atlanta, what were some of those priorities and how does that inform how you build? So I kind of like that introduction to the Chicago landscape of just understanding these were the priorities on how we were building and how it informed what we built at the time.
Yeah, and you also like every geography has its like thing that it's specializes in. And like Chicago had a lot of commodity markets, so there's like a lot of fintech coming out of
Yeah.
Chicago. Like behind New York, probably it was. I'm guessing it. I don't know. Guessing most trading. I didn't realize this. If you want to make a like CPG, like consumer package goods, I think that's what it's called for. Like basically, if you want to do like a
Hmm.
food based startup, the best place to be in the country is Boulder. There's like more food-based startups coming out of Boulder than almost anywhere else, or there were, at least there were a few years ago. And I think that was like a part of why Techstars was there in the beginning. So like each place has its own little specialty. Um, do you feel like there was one of those in New York? Was there some, or I mean, New York's big enough that it had everything, but like
Yeah,
in
New York
Atlanta,
has
maybe.
everything, but I do think
Yeah.
that was the cool part of New York was that New
Mhm.
York has everything. There are so many different industries that you can dabble in that, yeah, you can go down any path. And having the tech infrastructure to support, whether it was a business around community, whether it was a business around fintech, whether it was a business around fashion.
Mhm.
There were so many different lanes. And I think even as you're talking, yes, there's this aspect of geography, but I even think about, you know, prior, we had an eclipse, we also had a global pandemic, and even the ways that we thought about how we build, how we interact. So it's kind of interesting to see, yes, things maybe before were influenced by geo, but now we're so connected, but also very disconnected at the same time. So it's going to be interesting to see like what gets birthed, in this era.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It feels like the lines are geographically blurred more than they ever have been. Like you can kind of be anywhere and do anything. Like the everyone's
Yeah.
remote working. A bunch of companies are leaving California and the Bay Area. Like that's happening. And at the same time, so like in that way we're connected, but you're right. Like people are not meeting in person the same way. Like meetups are not happening the same way they used to. In some places they are, and in some ways they are, but it's different.
Yeah. Even that transition, even, yeah, I'm also even thinking about, okay, so at that time, I'm trying to remember what was Twilio up to at that time. But I'm even thinking about like what did you have your eye on Twilio at the time?
I am pretty sure that I used Twilio to send people text messages. I am pretty sure. So one of my startups, the last one, I think the last one's the only one I did this with, was it was like building community, helping people, like creating events that like help people meet and
Mhm.
make friends better. And Meetup was the main channel that we communicated through people with. But I'm pretty sure if I got someone's phone number, I'm pretty sure I used the Twilio API to send them like text to remind them to come to the events or fill out forms, like intake forms. So like I used Twilio back then. I did not. I specifically remember not using SendGrid. I was using a different email API. I don't. Yeah, weird because I had a friend who worked at SendGrid at that time, but
Wow,
it
what a
happens. But
great
yeah,
friend you are, Alex.
you know
Wow.
what? It happens. But so I was using it, and I remember the API being very easy to use, and I was not. It was
Mhm.
like one of my first forays into development. I was writing in Ruby on Rails. You don't hear that one too much anymore, but that was the thing back then. There you
Yeah.
go. Tech stacks have changed too. No one was writing in like Node. I don't even know if Node was a thing, but no one was using it. If it was, everyone was using Ruby. Yeah, Chef Brent used to be big into Ruby. I remember having a like realization with Ruby on Rails where there's like all these like gems that they have, which are like little plugins, and it felt like the dynamic. It was the first time that I felt like the dynamic of coding changed. It felt like in the past you had to like build up to something working. With
Mhm.
Ruby, it started working, and then to make it do what you wanted, you had to break it and fix it again. So it's just like it felt like a very different dynamic. And for somebody who wasn't like a super experienced coder, it was actually a lot of fun because like your default was something is working. Your default wasn't like, oh, maybe one day I'll get this thing working. Your default was like, this
Mhm.
works. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it
So
it was making me even think about lots of, yeah, there was huge hackathon culture.
oh yeah, I did a
Twilio.
lot of hackathons back then.
Oh yeah, there was lots of, I think that the culture of building was just so, everyone's like, well, we can create something. And I love just like that culture of hackathons. And it was kind of cool to see a lot of the folks that maybe in college they were super active in building stuff and how that started to translate into these new event spaces and things like that. But I felt like hackathons were it was a thing. And but yeah, I would say,
They were definitely a thing.
yeah, and I would say, let's see. So yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, you knew who Twilio was. Everyone was like, well, you can use Twilio for this and use
Yeah,
Twilio for that. And so I think that was definitely like a thing. There were probably folks, I mean, I'm trying to think. There are a few folks. I wonder, what is it? Let's see. Even though he doesn't like for us to call him or note the producerness, but I do, what how long do you feel like our chef Brent has been at Twilio? How
oh, I
long?
know this. He just celebrated 10 years.
10 years. 10 years. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so he
10
was
years.
there 7 years ago. He was at Twilio 7 years ago.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully, Chef Brent, if you hear this and you're open to joining us on these adventures, let us know. Anything?
Me? Why?
Hold on.
Oh wait,
Hold
why?
on.
Why though? Are you
Is
serious?
that
Do
a
you want me to?
voice?
Do you want me to join the show?
No, seriously. No, like if we're gonna do blast from the past, like we can't do a blast in the past. That's like, I know usually you like to be behind the scenes, but I'm just asking because Alex and I transported through the AB portal to get into the AB zone. So
So
we're
you
just
you
pulling.
you would prefer it to be an ABC zone with
I'm
the
just
Chef
saying.
Brett?
Mm,
I'm just saying. And
Yeah,
if
I mean, it is interesting because you mentioned that I like to be behind the scenes, but like, let's be real, friends. I've been in front of the camera a lot at Twilio, so let's do it. Whatever.
oh my god,
I'm here.
oh my
Let's go.
goodness,
so
I'm
Let's go.
just
Brent,
You know
you
what? I
were
haven't played my
amazing.
own lower thirds in a while. But hey, look, it's me.
Brett Schooley,
Oh,
lower
look.
third.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
love this. I love how we could still be the ABC or we could be the A and B.
You could be ABB. You could be AB squared. You
Wow.
could be ABC if you do the Chef Brent. It
Wow.
works.
Yeah.
Wow. They're
It works.
You
okay.
can be abs, ABS for your last name.
I'm realizing that I need something on my prompter that has YouTube, so I'm grabbing that now. Let me see, because I'm looking
It's
and I'm
been a-
like, it's just a blank background. I could put the chat there, but like I can't. Like, y'all are behind this shoulder and it's bothering me. How's it
The
going?
app.
What's up? So we got people. Look, Kaylin's here
Wow.
and
Okay.
Stephen
Chef.
Nick's here and Countess Lita.
So
Hi Lita.
Okay. We have
Hi, Lita.
We were
Kaylin.
just talking, and then as soon as Brent popped in, chat went wild.
It did.
Isn't
Wow.
that something?
I feel like the streets were waiting.
Uh,
The street.
all
Is
right.
it the streets of the stream? The street.
I'm
were-
getting-
Streets.
I'm getting a projector view of the two of you to put on my prompter right there so that I'll see you at all times. This is good. This is good.
This
Making
is
improvements.
exciting.
I haven't
This is
done this in a while. I was trying to think of when the last time I did a stream that I produced that I was also on, and it had to have been like a Signal TV or something at some point.
Okay. So since the last eclipse, though.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm checking the moon calendar, like the solar.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like yesterday. So yeah, it's definitely before then.
Okay. We just wanted to. We wanted to make sure. I
Yeah.
love this. I love. We got some love in the chat for Chef B. Okay, so I mean, you are someone that goes just beyond. Well, we know someone that's been at Twilio for a long time. I mean, beyond
Yeah.
being our person that's been at Twilio for a long time. Like, yeah. Who are you? Like, why are the streets so excited?
Oh, as you want me to?
Chef
Do you
B.
want me to introduce myself? Is that what this is? I could do that.
I guess.
Could do that.
But yeah, I was
I
trying.
could
I was
do
trying
that
to make
fine.
it. I was trying
Yeah,
to
no,
show
I
you-
got you. I'm calling out the segue, and you're like, don't call out the segue. You just told Alex not to do that last week. I got you. Yeah, I'm Brent Schooley. I worked at Twilio, as Alex mentioned, for 10 plus years now. I was 10 in February. And for the broad majority of my time here, I have focused on video related things. So we have a couple YouTube channels that I've basically helped grow to a large part. And then obviously this Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, hi. If you're watching on Twitch, hi. Yeah, we started Twitch in 2016, a little off and on, and then paused for a bit and then brought it back. But yeah, we've been on Twitch since 2016. The YouTube channel's been around for longer, but it was relatively dormant when I started posting to it. So yeah, I was like, that's me. I focus on like all of our different video production kind of stuff. Everything from like, how do I make my camera look good? You know, I was looking at we can't talk about what was talked about in the meeting, but I think I can mention that Ko has a nice camera. Our CEO has a nice camera, and there were people that were like, "What is that?" And I was like, "It's a mirrorless camera, and it probably has this kind of like this is the kind of stuff I'm interested in." So long time friends and fans have probably seen in the past. I used to do a show called Stream Tech Tuesday, where I talked about streaming gear and streaming setups, and we even built some streams together. But yeah. Kaylin, a mirrorless camera is like the cameras that we send you. Like old DSLRs had a mirror in them, and that's how they produced the image. There was the light would bounce off of a mirror onto the sensor. Current day cameras don't have a mirror, and that's good because mirrors eventually burn out. So a mirrorless camera will last you longer.
Which I think was a throwback to how cameras worked before
Yes.
digital, right? It
Oh
was,
yeah.
You had to have a mirror in there. So basically you could look through the viewfinder and see it. And then the mirror would lift up and then it would expose the film and go back down.
Yeah. So
And
when
I think
they
that's pretty much what the old digital cameras did originally too.
Yeah, when they first came out with big body digital cameras, they were DSLRs. So you'll hear people refer to DSLRs. Like the camera that you have right now, Alex, someone might call it a DSLR. It's not, because that would have a mirror in it, but it's the form factor, essentially. They're trying to distinguish between that and a webcam.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I do have a DSLR and some typical film SLRs. I used to be really into photography. I haven't picked it up in a minute, but I got the full setups.
That's good though.
Wait,
Yeah.
Brent, I was
Yeah.
just realizing something when we were talking about like where we were 7 years ago.
Yeah.
2017, you were starting to stream.
Yeah.
Twitch was a little baby.
Yeah. Twitch was a little baby.
Wow.
Twitch was a little baby. Our involvement with Twitch was a little baby. We weren't streaming on the Twilio channel at that point. Everyone was kind of streaming on their individual channels, which I still think like there's a large place for that. Like amongst us, like if Bianca, you had a Twitch following, and Alex, you had a Twitch following, and I have a Twitch following, I think when we come together and do these more official like Twilio looking things, like we bring our own individual audiences. So like maybe you don't have a Twitch following, but maybe you have an Instagram following. Like I think even if people that you're going to bring aren't necessarily interested in the topic that you're talking about, how many things not tech do you talk about in a given A/B testing? I mean, you talked about snacks last time, a little bit this time, like talked about where you've lived, right? It's still interesting. It's still a personality game. And I think that's one of the kind of the most interesting things to me about this sort of creator space is even in your most tech, like deep dive moments, there are going to be people in chat that are like just there for you or like there to learn whatever is going on. So I think it's cool.
Got it. Okay, so at that time, Twitch more in its baby years. What was that energy back then? Like I'm not calling you old, but yeah, like what was the energy that folks were just prioritizing? Were they just streaming just to stream?
So Twitch's history comes from Justin TV back in the day. I think it's interesting because like it comes from Justin TV, which had a lot of sort of like not gaming content. There was gaming content that sprung up, but it was originally like live streaming, right? Like life, not live. And that was some of the content that was there. But then as Twitch, it became a predominantly gaming thing. In 2016, 2017, there was an initiative that hatched inside of Twitch called Twitch Creative. And Twitch Creative had a bunch of different categories. So it had, and this was before there were a ton of different categories on Twitch proper. Creative had things like art and I think cooking fell under creative. Programming was a big thing that they wanted to see happen on Twitch because like the people that were starting Twitch Creative were programmers and they wanted there to be more, they wanted there to be a live coding venue, and they saw a future where people would watch software streams on Twitch, and that's right around the time that we were starting up. So it was pretty interesting because there was a lot of energy from Twitch around what we were doing.
Gotcha. Do you feel like a lot of dev communities were like leaning into that, or at the time was it just hackathons and get the word out?
No,
Yeah.
it was really kind of pioneer territory. Like I could name like I couldn't name them personally now, but at the time I probably could have named maybe five streamers that were programming consistently. Like that was their main thing and that's what they were doing. It grew pretty quickly, but yeah, there wasn't much of that going on. So you had Twitch promoting it. I mean, it was the viewership was a whole different ball game back then. But no, you didn't see people jumping into this very quickly. It took a while. It honestly took a while.
And on your personal streams, are you coding, or what kind of stuff do you do on your personal streams?
Any of my viewers that are in chat right now are probably going to say what streams, and then I'll be, we'll just have to clap back at them. But yeah, I've been a little light on content creation for a little bit. But as I was mentioning earlier, I mean, I've streamed a little bit of everything. There's a term called the variety streamer. So some variety streamers are variety streamers because they play a variety of different games. That's to distinguish from somebody who only plays Call of Duty or only plays Fortnite, and that's all they stream all the time. For me, I think variety takes on a different aspect because I do a little bit of everything, and it's kind of like pushes into some of the weird territory sometimes. I do Amazon shopping streams. That's a big thing that my community loves. So especially around Prime Day and any of the sales, I love to do those kind of streams. We're looking for like the big deals. Like we'll spend a whole time looking for like what's the cameras that are on sale, what's the different streams, is there microphones on sale. One of the things I did on one of the last ones was I asked the community, like, what do you need, what do you want to find deals for, and we just picked them off the stack. So that's one. I'm a big, I don't eat it as frequently as people would probably think, but I'm a big fast food fan. Like, I know what's going on in the fast food world, even though I probably eat it like once or twice a month. But one of the things, we stumbled on this accidentally one stream. I was doing a Black Friday stream, doing Amazon Black Friday things, and someone said something about Japan and something about McDonald's, and I was recalling that I loved McDonald's in Japan because it was so cool. Like, it was so cool. So we went to mcdonalds.co.jp to just check out the menu. And at the time, this was years ago, Google's inbuilt translation from Japanese to English was, I'll be nice, it was bad. Okay. But like,
Okay.
I want to say hilariously bad. So that stream, I'll be honest, I had a few drinks, like we were shopping, and we end up on these hilarious translations, and it's like some of my best content ever. It's just me not being able to finish a sentence because it was so poorly phrased. So that's like that end of the spectrum. Obviously, I'm a gamer, so I've done a lot of gaming streams. I used to be a speedrunner on a very difficult game called Cuphead. So that was a lot of my content for a while. Used to do a thing called Saturday morning cartoons because Cuphead is a like hand-drawn animation game. So we did Saturday morning cartoons on Saturdays. A lot of different stuff. And obviously I, from time to time, cook. And if Frackberg were here in chat, would probably be yelling that I don't do enough pizza streams, but it happens.
So in other words, Brent is super cool. I'm like, you learn so much by what a person streams. Who knew?
I know.
Who
Well,
knew?
speaking of learning so much, Bianca, if you had your own streaming show, if I wasn't here to talk to you, what would you do?
Ooh, I want to know this one.
Wow, that is so okay. That's good. I'm definitely, I like the food would have to be a part of it. A foodie person. And wow, this is a great one, Alex. That was good. Okay, so food is definitely one. It would probably have some musical aspects. So I have this running joke with some of my friends, which is whenever I hear music, I start to think about what scene would this go to in a film. So I'm like, oh, okay, this has like, in this scene, the person just left, they just left and they're nostalgic about what just happened, and this is the music that goes for that scene. So definitely something around film, music, food. What else? Let's see. Maybe some stuff around photography. So definitely a bit artsy. I would probably go artsy. There's probably other stuff I would do too. I love just kind of trying to build new stuff and learning new things. So maybe part of it would be, oh, okay, I know the stream. I figured out the stream. Okay.
we're building a stream. I'm taking notes.
Okay, so basically the stream would be me having to learn something new. So whether it is a language, whether it is I'm not going to sign up myself up for this. Maybe it is a new dance move. So yeah, maybe, but like every couple of streams, it would just be me signing up to learn something that I may have been exposed to, but just kind of pushing myself to just like try and test out. So maybe it would be something in front of a computer, or it could also be something out in the field. I like to say out in the field, out in the world, but I would say definitely learning and trying. And it's even ironic to hear myself say that because a few years ago, I'd be like, trying, testing, no, perfection. We have to be perfect. So, okay, what do we got? We got
official. Bianca learning new things. It's official. I wrote it down. It's official.
So yeah, so I think that would probably be if I had like a solid stream thing. Okay, Alex, what would be your?
Yeah. I'm glad that you went first and I asked you that because I got some time to think about it. I think the learning and trying new things would be a lot of fun. Like right now, I'm learning how to play piano. I've never really dove into a musical instrument before. I don't know how exciting that would be on stream, but you never know. People like to see you do things not great. Um, and then as far as the like non-tech streams, because I do have a few ideas on the tech side, I think like food is a big one. I love to cook. I love to make things. I also really like tea. I had finished my pot already. This was a nice raw pu'er. I have a. I feel like most of my streams are like which one of my friends would do it with me because that'd be fun. I have a friend who's like super into tea, like has like a chest full of tea, including stuff that he's like held on to for like 10 years plus. We're just waiting to try. So like I think a tea stream would be kind of fun. But then on the tech side, I could see myself going in like a few different ways. I think there's just looking at my background. So I used to work. I have a master's degree in robotics, and like I don't. There's some people streaming out there in robotics, and some people I used to work with are really great at it and doing it. But I think there's probably room for more people using open source robotics content and inviting some of the experts in the field up there because at some point you figure out the people who are like maintaining these open source repositories are just like really great people and they have a lot to share and they don't always have the platform for it. But there's so I think there could be some cool stuff around like building in ROS, which is a robotic operating system and stuff like that. I think doing some more like hardware builds would be fun, like Arduino, little fun things like that are a little more that would be like the artistic one, right? Like there's some fun artsy things you can do with that. And then the thing that I've like randomly done a lot of that I actually think is super interesting is helping people who are building not tech companies use tech to make it better. So like examples are like I've helped a few artists like build out their websites and figure that out. I've helped a few like people that are like therapists or that kind of thing figure out like how do they set up a phone number usually with Twilio, right? Or like other things that are low code for people building out things that don't require. So I think there's like, I really get excited about what are the tools out there for people to build without having to be techie. And yeah, Rashab, I'm going to throw this out there. Rashab, if you want to come on and do a Raspberry Pi build with me on stream, let's do it.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Right now, throwing that out there.
Great.
Right, so for Alex, I wrote down copy Bianca because that's where you started. You started with copying Bianca,
of course.
Which like I said earlier, the flattery thing, and then tea and food, and then robotics, and then like help people build stuff. Yeah, I like these.
Yeah.
Alex, this was kind of therapeutic to hear you talk about what you would build because I was like, wow, did tech mess with me? That I was like, oh, the tech stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, this was so much of my world. But
yeah,
I think as I'm talking to you, I'm like, wow, getting the love back of, like why you wanted to build things. And even when you were talking about helping folks who may not necessarily be in certain industries find and engage the power of tech, that was literally like my thing, my like making it connect for folks. So even as you're talking, I'm like, wow, this feels like AB therapy,
Yeah, AB therapy. Yeah, like I think that it would be like fun to have like a let me build that for you stream. Like if it's simple stuff, right? I think there's a lot you can do with like Airtable and some of those tools. And like, let me build it. Like, tell me what you need. Let me build it for you. There was somebody at the Boston. They were like doing affordable housing in Boston, like one of the nonprofits there, and they needed some help. And I was like, cool, I'm going to build you some skeletons of that because it was cool stuff in Airtable. It's stuff that's useful. It's out there right now. If you go to Twilio or github.com/Twilio-samples, it's up there. It's like there's a whole repo of stuff that I put up there, and a lot of people can use it. But it was like fun to build out for somebody, and I feel like doing that on stream would be fun.
Yeah, even this aspect of just like finding the love again of these, because I do think when you've been in a space, you've seen it transform. It's easy to kind of get like, ugh, like I'm over this. This isn't exciting as much. So I do think even whether it's these stream ideas, because in some ways we are newbies on the streams. Like, what are we learning, Alex? Like, what do you feel like? What is it? 6 streams in? Like what?
6 streams in. So we had a little like recap strategy session on Thursday, I think, last
Yes.
week, and figuring it out. And I think that there's the big takeaway that I had from that is we like, I think Bianca and I both are like, we want to do an awesome job. Like that's our thing. And so like we do a lot of prep, and we've done a lot of prep for some of these streams, and it's a lot of work, and it's fun work, and I like it, but it's work, and it takes away from other things. And then, you know, what's it like to not have to plan a stream as much? What's it like to be able to show up with just like the bones of an idea, put an hour or two in either the day before or whatever to figure out what you're going to do, maybe make sure that, you know, my first stream I had to re-download Xcode, so like I don't want to have to do that on stream again. Not fun. But like make sure Xcode's downloaded and you're good to go, and then just get the bare minimum so you can kind of start and improvise, which I should be doing more of. My continuing education through Twilio right now is taking improv classes. So, you know, you can come check me out on May 2nd at the Chaos Bloom Theater if you're in the Denver area. I don't know if you want to come. It's not, I don't know how good it's going to be, but
This was the
Yeah.
thing. This was the thing that that we talked about a little bit too, where I think there's like a gradient of like it's the same as like when you public speak, right? There's this notion that you'll never ever lose that like uncomfortable edge. Like you will always be nervous to some degree, but like the level of preparedness and the amount of time you've done it lessen the overall impact of those nerves, because you know you can calm them down. The first time you go speak, you can't calm that down. Like you spend that entire time with that pit in your stomach, feeling like you're like you probably didn't eat. That's how nervous you were. So there's nothing for you to lose. But like, you know, that kind of over time, the more you do that thing, the easier it gets. From a nerves perspective, I think you'll learn over time what you need to prepare and what you don't necessarily need to prepare. And then also the one that always interests me is like everyone starts off with a like a stream checklist. I always call up the stream checklist, and it's like at the beginning it includes everything from like make sure my mic's unmuted, and like make sure that all of my scenes work, and make sure that, you know, my camera is turned on. Like there's like you'll have everything listed out. And over time, what I always try to do is like, is there something that will help me remove one of those things from the checklist so that I get closer to the ideal, which is if I want to stream, I know I can just sit down, open up OBS, turn my camera on, you know, if it's not already, and then hit go, right? And for a stream like this, yes, you have to do some prep because you're doing a show and you want to have a topic to talk about. But today, right, we have a topic, but I challenged the hosts.
Oh, challenge you did.
I challenged the host to like let go a little bit of the planning. Now, granted, it's easy because I'm bringing content, but you can bring other people that can bring content. So this is a little bit of an experiment in a way, where I just basically said, "Do you want me to come on the show? I'll come on the show." Now I'm tearing down the facade that you built up earlier.
I know.
You brought me on
want to say that,
spontaneously.
Brett.
I
No,
was
it's
like,
okay.
wow, Brett, even this is improvising. I'm like,
It's okay.
But
It's okay.
I will, okay. So
people
even
people know. I think they know
Okay,
that I was gonna come
well,
on. Come on.
wow, Brett. Wow. How will we bounce from this? Okay, but okay. So
You'll
one of the
never
things-
recover.
ever. But the other piece too, though, that I think I at sometimes going back into the learnings is this aspect of digital pressure. I do think initially you had the in-person interactions and that was a part of the conversation, but like everything nowadays is on digital. So it doesn't just feel like, oh, this is just a fun stream, which I always want to have the fun vibes here, but you can start to feel this digital pressure of, is my post on Instagram great? Or, you know, did my blog post, you know, did my Twilio blog post like resonate with people? What were the languages? What were the examples I used? It's no longer just, oh, I'm showing you how to build this in person at a booth. It's like, this is going to be online. And can my blog post stand the test of time? Can this demo stand the test of time? And I think that to me that digital pressure, it can push you to feel a sense of where's the room for fun, right? Like
It's well, that also makes me think of like, this is now on YouTube in theory forever.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's there, but then the flip side is like at some point people stop paying attention.
Yeah.
Unless they're looking for it for some reason. Unless Bianca runs for president in 20 years and all of a sudden people go back and look at her stream. Right? So
you have people scrub that
kind of
just my luck. Someone will be like, someone's gonna be like, you remember that stream that you did on April 9th? Just my luck. I feel like I am going to look back and it's gonna be like, you remember that stream that Alex said you had nothing to worry about? Well, here we are. So
I think you have people scrub that. I've been thinking about this though. I've been thinking about this since this notion of the digital pressures thing since you brought it up yesterday. No, you didn't. You didn't bring it up yesterday. This was spontaneous. I forgot. Oops, smirk. I've been thinking about this aspect though of that, which is I think there's areas of digital representation, your like digital persona or your digital representation where there's different expectations. Like there's a certain expectation in some areas and a certain different expectations in another area. Like maybe you're goofy on TikTok, maybe you're the same on Instagram, or maybe you're not. Maybe you're serious on YouTube. I think live streaming in general, unless it's an event, unless it's I don't know. There are certain aspects of like, I don't want to say perfection. I think Twitch and live streams in general is the area for imperfection. It's the place for, and it's not even about perfection versus imperfection. It's personal. This is a place where you as a personality are most directly represented, because even if you had a script, you could go off of it. Even if you were talking about a specific topic, chat can pull you in a different direction. Go look at any of my VODs. It happens all the time. Like tangents in my stream, like we talk about them as if like they're currency, because at some point I'll be like, where did we start? And when we try to walk it back, right? So like trying to find the connection back from this point back to the main topic line so that you can continue the main topic. It happens all the time. So I just think live streaming is a place is a personality space. And personalities are imperfect. And in fact, if you come across too prepared, it doesn't seem authentic. And I think this is an authentic space.
Brent, did you prepare that?
No, that's off the cuff.
I think do you have a teleprompter? You sure that wasn't?
That's off the cuff. No, you're on the teleprompter. That's off the cuff.
I don't know, Brent. That was good. I'm like,
that's off the cuff.
Wow.
Yeah, been talking about this for a bit, I think, like strategically. So
I think that shows up for me the most in like I have a lot of self-consciousness around like how good of a developer I am, right? Like it's something that I've like done at work, but it's always been like a different thing. It hasn't been like, I haven't been like a heads down developer for any long period of time, but I know how to code, I can do it, and I'm okay at it. And I get on stream and typically things don't work and I don't always know why. Or like the other day I was doing something in JavaScript and I had to Google how to write a for loop in JavaScript because I just forgot. And there's something about being on stream, which also makes everything scarier, right? Because like people are watching you fail. But then the time where like Craig popped in and was like, hey, try this. Or like the time where like last week or 2 weeks ago when we were talking and people just like started helping me out. It's so much more fun to code when you have like, it's even beyond pair programming. It's like this community programming, and it's a really cool experience that I'm glad that I do. But it is that it's like the imperfection is actually what makes it special. That when I can't figure it out, that makes it special. If I was just like a really awesome coder and was just like, let me write this code for you, blah, 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 blah. And it was just going through, I don't know how much enjoyment or value that would be. The fact that I struggle, I don't know, chat, you tell me, does me struggling to code make for good content?
You asked chat.
Let's
There,
see.
okay.
I asked chat. Yes.
I think it does,
Yeah.
but that's me. That's me preaching.
See? Okay,
preaching my
Rashad.
thing.
Rashad is
Rashad
like
says relatable.
yeah, I think it's so interesting that so many communities were built out of we're figuring this out together. And even that aspect of even as you brought that illustration, I'm like, oh yeah, if it went super clear, if it was super easy, no one would be able to comment, no one would feel engaged. And I'm not saying you're failing just so people can engage, but I do think even that space of creating room for your community to show up for you. And I think sometimes that can be hard. We're so anchored on, I don't want to look bad, instead of, hey, maybe our failures or our imperfections are places that our communities can show up for us, or our, yeah, just folks in our network. So I love this kind of reframing and even that opportunity to just reframe essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
totally.
it kind of comes back to like we started this whole thing talking about startups, and I was always bothered by the like, I don't know if like worship's the right word, but like how much we idolize people who are like successful, and how much we think about things being like overnight successes, when it's really, I think, and me personally, as somebody who's washed out entrepreneuring a few times, it's like when you fail is when you really learn something. Like there's more, in my mind, there's more value in learning like what's not working for you than like what is working, because it might not work again the same time, but something that's not working is probably not going to work for you. And so I think there's like a little bit of that here, where it's like we want to be seen as like we're doing it, we're successful, we're good, but then really like the way that we learn the most and we teach the most is through failure.
I like
Yeah,
I like Rashad here. It says success is subjective too, and I think that's such a good point, right? Like what your definition of success is will greatly impact your perception of success versus failure. Now I love those moments where you're struggling with something. Like you were talking about how like, you get that sort of like collaborative situation where like I can't figure out how this thing's gonna work. I'm going to go Google for like 20 minutes and fumble around kind of like aimlessly. I've had to do this, right? When I first started streaming programming, I was doing a lot of iOS development, and man, that tool set can be a struggle at times. And I was doing it both native Objective-C at the time. Swift didn't even exist yet. Native Objective-C, and also C# through Xamarin, which is where I did the bulk of that stuff. And it's just like, it's frustrating at times because you're like, I know this should work, but it doesn't. And I'm left sometimes thinking, man, okay, I'm gonna have to Google for a bit. Is this interesting? Is this entertaining? I bet it's not, but it is. And when you have active chat just kind of coming along for the ride, eventually I feel like you break out on the other side, and there's a success to celebrate, and I think everyone sort of loves that and can celebrate that in chat when it happens. Which, yeah, that's what you're there for. That's sort of what you're living for, is that sort of next moment where it's like, man, we did it. And that's a phrase that will come out of your mouth if it didn't last time, Alex. Like the we, right? Even if it was just you, not you and Bianca, it was you, and you were trying to do the thing and you finally did it. The words "we did it" chat will come out of your mouth like it's natural, and it's and it's true though, because they helped.
And it's a community, and I love that. Like community is so important
Yeah.
to me in so many ways, both as a father, as having a lot of amazing friends, and like being at Twilio and now being on stream. It's like the community really makes it. And like when you're talking about like we did it, like that's a community thing, right? It's a communal experience, and we don't have a lot of those in life as much anymore. So it's kind of fun to do that in this format.
It's reminding me that community is so timeless, and even that aspect of, yeah, like we, and that I think sometimes we can forget how timeless, that aspect of community can be. And then even as you were talking about building this space of, you've never been here before, right? Like we've never experienced this moment, and even just giving yourself room to be like, okay, I've never been here before, but I'll figure it out. I think some of the coolest things are when the same problems start to boomerang back. And I think about that stream that Craig had joined us on, and I'm like, oh, Craig was probably able to help you troubleshoot because he's like, oh, I've been there before. And, you know, and him figuring it out ended up being a tool that helped you figure it out. But now when you're like, someone else is probably going to come up to you and you'll be like, oh, I know this. It's so funny. There are certain things when you're like debugging and you're like, no, I know this one. I've seen it. And you're like, why are you so passionate about this? And you're like, no, don't forget, just don't forget it. Don't forget the parentheses. Just don't. We've been here before.
I have this one very distinct moment from like coding where Ruby on Rails could not for the life of me get something to work, like banging my head against this one little issue for like days. Finally went to somebody who was like a better programmer than me and was like, hey man, I'm having this issue. What is going on? He's like, oh yeah, that's like, you need to go into this other file that you didn't even realize was there and change this one setting and it'll all work again. Totally understandable. I've done that a million times. Couldn't figure it out on Google, couldn't figure it out any ways. And I just needed to ask somebody. And like, that's when I realized coding in a bubble sucks. Like, it's so much better when you're with people, and like having that in chat and that built in is really nice if it is a little bit scary too. But it's so nice to be like, somebody else has gone through this and might know the answer.
It's so helpful. It's so helpful. There was a tweet. There's been a discussion around if chat might legitimately be the first dedicated fourth person pronoun. Which is interesting because like people are using it out of context. So like away from streaming, someone will like jokingly say, chat, is this real? Like in the real world, there's no chat, right? So it's just like, I don't think linguistically that checks out, but it is an interesting discourse. Interesting tweet. I'll drop the link to it.
What do you mean fourth person?
They go into that. So
okay.
So when we talk about the fourth person pronoun, what we're actually talking about are the kinds of participants in dialogue that don't fit into the typical three setups: subject, object, observer. Several ideas have been tossed around about what could be considered like an atypical fourth type of relation to the dialogue that doesn't really fit. And the most popular is the hive mind, we/us, which is like, I'm reading verbatim, which is like usually dismissed as an experiment of science fiction. And of course, because hive minds in science fiction have to resemble our own or our known rules of language so we can understand it, it just borrows first person, plural, and third person object, even though it's not really. So we, us, it/them to refer is used in fiction to represent hive minds. So they go on to say basically, you know, a we us kind of situation doesn't typically get represented, but if it did, it would be a fourth person pronoun, and chat in that sort of like situation would be a fourth person pronoun, which is kind of interesting. But it's not, because it's us,
but you're not a part of it.
But like it's a noun, so like this is categorizing a word as a noun / pronoun, which I do think actually checks out, because in the real world, when you use that, you're actually talking about the room of people, and they're not actually chat.
Yeah.
Speaking of chat,
speaking of
one thing in chat that actually being vulnerable and open to collaboration isn't a normal interaction in daily life. And it's kind of interesting that, like, you don't go around being so vulnerable and open and so I didn't even think about it as like, in many ways, sometimes is it that the stream shows us our vulnerabilities. It shows us the areas that we may not be showing up in our IRL lives. So even this aspect of vulnerability is not super commonplace. Collaboration may not be often commonplace, in that we can maybe look to these digital spaces to, in some ways, tell us about ourselves. I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, people?
What's the thing, like, the whatever you're most afraid of is usually what you need to like go towards. I don't know if I always think to like appeal to that or subscribe to that idea, but like I think it's there. And I think being vulnerable Look, just like, behind the curtain a little bit, like Bianca and I have a really amazing working relationship because we're very vulnerable with each other. And like, I think that's one of the reasons that we wanted to do this together, is because we trust each other pretty completely. And Brent fits right into that too. Like, we trust Brent to make this all work really well. And so I think that vulnerability is just a huge piece of almost anything you do, but in particular when you get up in front of an audience. And yeah, you gotta get used to being vulnerable. And I don't know, part of my shtick, I feel, when I'm up on stage is like, it's okay to look like a silly person. Like, it's okay not to like to be me. I remember one of the first times I went out and like did a live demo for Twilio. I pulled some of Rashab and Cloud's code and was using it, and like it didn't go well. And like my entire shtick the whole time was just like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but we're gonna make this stuff work. And like there was for some reason like a 12-year-old at this meetup, because it was like somebody's kid, and I like handed him my phone and let him like text in the spot, and he was like saying very weird stuff. And it was like, it was great, but part of it was like having that rapport of like, I'm gonna be kind of silly and not really know what's going on. It made the whole thing better.
It's also life. Life is like life. I think it's so interesting. All these things that we're mentioning, I'm like, wow, this is just life. We are learning how to do life. And if life can't be fun, if life can't be nuanced, if life can't be a little silly, but I think so much of our life existence these days has been, you got to be on point. Your code has to work. Like, what kind of life is that? And I think it's interesting, because now I'm starting to get even grasp like what you were mentioning, Brent, which is balance. Like, if this can't be a place of fun, if this can't allow us to get back into a more balanced version of reality, then what do we have? What do we have if we don't have those spaces that allow us to be honest, allow us to be candid, vulnerable, also allow us to be smart, innovative folks? But that's not like, we're such these multifaceted humans. And I think giving room for so many versions of us to show up it's easier said than done. But if nothing else, like, we can cultivate this corner on the internet, on the streams, right? To be that. So this was, wow, this does feel like ABC therapy. Wow.
Yeah, the stream space is like such a I don't know, it's such an interesting, it kind of is what you make of it. Like, when you start off streaming, you've got probably no chat interaction. So like the notion of building something in to like for chat to even use or do doesn't resonate with you. But once you have people chatting, like they come in and they're like, they want to use your emotes, or they want to I don't know, like they want to take part in polls, or like whatever. They want what they do in chat to have an impact on the stream. They want you to read. Like, the first step is, oh man, I have chat messages, I have to read them. Oh my goodness, I have to, okay, not only do I have to talk to Alex and Bianca, but I need to pay attention to like what Scorchmark is saying in chat. And if I'm playing a game, that's even harder, right? Like, it gets challenging depending on what you're doing. Like Alex, when you're deep in programming, right, you're gonna bounce out sometimes and make sure you know what's going on with chat. But then like there's these layers as your community grows of like things that you add to the stream that wouldn't have made sense before. And I think that's fun. It is what you make of it. It is what your community makes of it. And we don't have too many spaces like that. I think maybe meetups, like developer meetups, have the opportunity for that. I've seen somewhere, 1 week they do this kind of presentation, and 1 week maybe they'll do a panel or something like that. And that's because that's what people wanted. But yeah, I think this is like one of those moldable spaces where your viewers, your community, and the content that you enjoy creating kind of molds the space, right?
Yeah. Even as you, oh, what were you
Go
gonna
ahead,
say?
Bianca. No, you go.
I mean, as you were going to be the person I use as an example, but I'm even thinking about the word molding, and I'm not a parent, but it's kind of often cool to see how parents have to essentially, you're helping to raise a human, and like, you don't know what this person is going to be, you don't know what they're going to be interested in, but like allowing that person to just be who they are, take shape, right? Take shape and form as like whatever version of themselves that makes sense. And we welcome that energy in parenting, but yet, you know, or even in our own personal growth, but then somewhere along the way, we're like, no, no more, no more, no more molding, no more just evolving. We're like, this is who you are, this is what you are. And I'm like, wow, why aren't we meeting it with that same kind of childlike energy of just, we didn't have a predetermined view of like, okay, this is what you're going to be as a human. Like, I mean, maybe a little bit, but you know, maybe your parents a little bit, but I do think over time you're just like, I'm just going to let you be the best version of who you want to be. And I may have had an idea of what I see, but I'm not going to like reject the natural progression of how you're evolving as a human.
That's so true. And like parenting is just such a great example of that, right? In case you don't know, I have a 15-month-old daughter, and she's amazing. She's just the best, because every parent would agree with me that their kid's the best. But I love my daughter so much.
She's actually pretty cool.
She's very cool. She's tons of fun and everything. But you're so right about the molding, and it's really little things that matter. We didn't want a lot of gifts when she was born, but people want to send stuff, so a lot of people sent books. And so it's wild how much our daughter likes to read books. Like she'll just sit there and pull a book and hand it to you, and then you'll read it, and then like halfway through you'll get to the next one, which honestly makes sense. My wife and I are both huge readers. In fact, the idea that I missed was like a sci-fi book review. I would do that in a heartbeat. But like, so we have a ton of books, and my father-in-law was a librarian. Like reading's a big part of our relationship. Our first date was at a bookstore. And so like, it kind of makes sense that our daughter's into these books, but it's part of that was like us molding that, right? Us making sure that the most available toy to her was books. But you're right. It's like, it's so much about molding and like trying to let her be everything that she wants to be and let her be herself so intently. And then also inspire her to do more, right? It's always a balance for me of like, when do I show my daughter how to do something versus just let her figure it out? And it's wild because sometimes you show them once and they get it, right? Like she's starting to figure out like what her body parts are. And I'm trying to like teach her more of those, but like I just show her the knee, and then all of a sudden she can point to her knee. She's already got the nose, the mouth, the ears.
I love when the kids are like, nose, mouth, head. Yeah. My favorite is like when they like do the head.
Always 2 hands for head.
Always. Yeah, I'm like,
what's up with that?
I don't know. It's just like, I'm like, wow, is this how we started this stressed out? Like,
starts early. Starts early.
Yeah. But even, okay, so even as I'm thinking about like the building blocks, and, you know, I'm going to put you on the spot. Chef Brent. But even as you think about like these building blocks, you know, blogs have been a thing. And I wonder, like, you know, the posts you had in the past versus now, like, do you feel like there's still those similar, like, are those tools just as relevant, right, for today? And like the role that you played back then versus the role that you're playing now? Like, I don't know, would just love to kind of hear your thoughts about just even that blogging journey of shaping a developer's experience as they're building, you know?
Talking about like gradient of time at Twilio, that kind of thing. Like, okay, so when I started, we weren't doing anything with video. On the developer network is our, like, we've talked about it on the show before, but for anybody that's new, like our overarching team of like developer focused people within Twilio, essentially, on the marketing side at least. You know, there's obviously product teams and other folks that care about developers, but we're mostly focused on developers under the marketing world. And when I started, one of the components of that developer network is the developer evangelism team. And when I started at Twilio, that was it. For developer relations, all we had was evangelism. And I want to say there were 6 or 7 of us. I might be off by like 1 or 2, but it was a small table. Like, you know, if you're thinking about it, it's like a small dinner table size team, not like a conference room table or something like that, which, you know, they would have now. And the big focus for how you did engagement at that time was going to writing blogs. Like, writing blog posts, I think, has always been there. It's always been a thing because there tons of people learn by reading. They learn by looking at code examples. They learn by copying and pasting code examples. And that's just a trickier thing to do in a video format. So I think written format stuff like blogs and docs are always going to be touch points that you have to have, especially for programming, right? You need to be able to see the code in a way that's clickable and copyable and pastable. But the other aspect of this is how do you talk to people? How do you get in front of people? And at the time, we weren't really doing that with video. We were doing that with going to big events or going to smaller, like big conferences, smaller conferences, meetups, and hackathons. Now, I didn't do hackathons as much. I was mostly, I went to a few. Yeah, like we all went to our own fair share of them. But some people were more into those than others. I went to the events. I went to meetups and I went to conferences and that sort of thing. And then I wrote posts and that, like, going to see people, I think was very important because you need that personal connection with developers. It's often the most impactful thing that you can do. But and this is like one aspect of why I like what I do so much is it just doesn't scale. It doesn't scale. And I'd ask the two of you, I'll bring you both back in, but like, let's say we had 10 people, maybe 20, maybe 30 rotate through over the course of this stream. If I went to a meetup in Dallas, let's say, because I used to go to Dallas a lot, I would be pretty thrilled if I could reach 20 people in that room. Like, some events have less people that go to them. Some of them are big, they'll have 100 people. Some of them are small, they'll have 10. I spoke at meetups that I traveled to that had 6 people in attendance. Now, we can debate whether that's a good use of travel budget, but I still reach those 6 people, right? But in video, right, like we will reach 20 to 30, maybe more while we're live. And then, as you mentioned earlier, it's recorded, like the VOD is on demand. We can cut segments out of it and post those as individual videos that give it a second round of life. And we can mine that forever, right? There are things that y'all have said in past episodes that I still want to go back and take out and post it on YouTube, because I think you said something timeless. It's not, you don't have to go back and watch episode 4 of A/B testing. You just need to watch this 5 minutes of episode 4 of A/B testing, and you don't even need to know that it was from episode 4 of A/B testing. We'll probably slip that in there that this is a show that's recurring, but you said something timeless, so we cut it out and we make a video of it and we post it out there, and now new people see it. You go to that meetup once and you talk to those 20 people in that room once, especially if it's one that you traveled to, that's like, maybe you went to go to a conference in Tennessee and you hit the meetup that was there the Wednesday before. That's just an opportunity. Like, you're already there. It's an opportunity cost, but you got that one opportunity to talk to those 20 people, and you may never be back to that meetup again because it's in Tennessee. And you just don't go to Tennessee that often. Versus, I get 20 people right now, and I get 20 people tomorrow, and I get maybe 200 people tomorrow. Like, that just, to me, is such an opportunity. But yeah, I'll toss it back to you for now. I have more as we move forward, but like, just that opportunity of, like, every time we go live, we have an opportunity to reach a meetup to small conference amount of people immediately, with long tail potential on every second, every minute that happens, right?
And adding in chat to that makes it a two-way street, because I think the one thing about videos, it's very one way, or can be, and like the meetup is very, we get to work together. We get to talk together, and you're even saying, like, that's if you go to a meetup, like, how many people are going to talk to you? What are the odds you get? Like, you usually have to nowadays, like, pay to sponsor a meetup, or like to talk at one. Sometimes they want you there, sometimes they want you to pay to be there. So like, there's a lot of other stuff going on there. But yeah, I totally feel that of like, as long as that, I think there needs to be a two-way interaction. I think that's the one thing that pure video is great if you're learning and you want to just intake. But like, the thing that makes streaming or like webinars special in my mind is the live interaction with chat, the Q&A, the like, something's happening.
Yeah, even this is so great. Y'all, I'm in awe today because you were helping me re-examine so many things. So I used to be an avid tweeter. or is it X? I don't know. What do you call the people?
Xer. That's a
It's so
weird
weird.
way to say it.
I guess
I
you're
was
a poster now, because I think,
Yeah.
did they finally remove? Yeah, it's now post. It's not tweet when you make a post. So you're an X poster.
Which to
oh,
me feels like cross post, which is like,
Yeah.
a Reddit
Yeah.
thing,
An
but
X
yeah.
poster.
So I was like, wow, look at me, identity crisis. You know who I am. I mean, I do. But so even as you're talking, I'm like, oh, what I would be sharing would be going to like 4,000. And then don't like, if someone retweeted or reshared something, like that was being amplified to, maybe someone who had like 100,000 followers. And even as you're talking, I'm like, oh, wow, like just even that ability for something to be scaled out, shared out. And I was like, wow, who is that version of Bianca? Wow, she didn't care. And so even as you're talking, I'm like, wow, what parts of that energy, it's all the same. I do think the interactions, I think getting the feedback even visually, the one thing about X or Twitter, I'm gonna call
Just
it
gonna
Twitter.
call it Twitter. Twitter till the
Twitter,
end of days.
Twitter for life.
Yeah.
So
the posting app formerly known as Twitter.
yes,
No, don't. No, we're not
not
printing that. No,
we're
not.
not
Okay.
going there.
Sorry.
This
I was
was
just trying something out. This is A/B testing.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. But okay, so the thing about it is that maybe then your face was there, but it was like more of an icon versus now it's like my face is here talking to you, or this video I can interact with you, and it's like a different dynamic, but it's all the same. And I think even this like evolution, because I think even on this stream we've just been talking about blast from the past, but also even within the blast from the past, old things are new. And even the new things that were like, oh, this is so new and different, is it really? Or is it just a more expansive version of what we did? So maybe I'm not necessarily tweeting, but I'm streaming, but it's still the same dialogue, and like the muscles that I developed tweeting my thoughts into like to thousands of people is probably the same energy as being in conversation on a stream or having something broadcasted. So even as you're talking, it's kind of reviving that.
I actually think it's a different energy, because there is conversation that happens on Twitter where like you post something and then people reply and blah blah blah, but the fact that you're live, I think, changes it.
Yeah,
I think there's something different about how much time you have to reply. Like if somebody drops something in, if you drop a tweet and somebody like drops a controversial comment, you get to sit there and like think about what you're going to do if you even want to reply.
Alex,
versus
that wasn't
here,
me. That was not me. I
here,
was in fact real timing.
Oh, were you like real time? Like, I'm going to go get tacos now. Like, was that you?
I was definitely, yeah.
I've done
I
that.
just never.
I've done that
I
on
always
Twitter. I used to
wondered.
use it that
I'm
way.
like,
It's rough.
I was like, why do people care what I'm doing right now? That didn't make sense to me. The first time I thought Twitter was useful was when I got to complain to some company about their customer service. But I think there's something about being live and being here and showing your face that is more real, right? Like when you're hiding behind that icon, like you said, you can kind of separate yourself from it all more. When you're like here showing your face on like it's you.
I was adding things into I call it my stream diary.
Stream diary? That's good. I love
my
the
stream diary. I was like, wow.
I love
I'm
the stream
adding
diary.
to my stream diary. But even this aspect of everything is just becoming more real. And maybe these spaces that we had before, they weren't pulling us as much into reality. So even this aspect of you are live, this is real life. You say something, someone can respond to it, and you can respond back. Also, I wouldn't, if someone's talking to me on a chat, I wouldn't just stare at you and be like, so even this aspect of, someone adds something to chat, I would respond if someone's talking to me or they're talking to a conversation. So even some of those aspects of, we can translate it. We can still be humans in these spaces. And I think even that aspect of humanity, we can bring our humanity to a stream. And that to me can feel scary, but it's also fun.
which is even more important with like AI popping up, right? Like that's the thing. It's the humanity and, you know, the emotion and the relation that we get to do, which is what makes it so special.
I used to say that the stream was like the meetup that you didn't have to leave to go to, that you could really do in your pajamas, right? It's like, and I think about that, and when I think of like bigger streamers, I'm like, this is the Google I/O keynote that they can go to in their pajamas. Like, you know, when you, as you scale up to this like gigantic level, like you, and I'm not saying like that has to be the goal or the ideal, but it's like you have that scaling potential to reach so many people just by pushing a button on your, you know, in your streaming software. To where like if you were to compare that to the real world, you're like, some people are in a stadium when they hit go live. Like that's the number of people that are watching them, and that's an interesting like scaling dynamic, because, you know, we've got a handful of people watching live right now, but like, what's the difference in dynamic when you've got 1,000 people? What's the difference in dynamic when it's 50? What's the difference in dynamic when it's 100, when it's 1,000, when it's 10,000? Like it's such a gradient of, you know, you can't follow chat past a certain point of viewership, right? Because they're all saying like irrelevant things, or they're having their own conversations, or they're just spamming stuff.
They don't care. They don't care about, like, I mean, even when you were talking about those major developer conferences, I think about like F8, it was so overwhelming to, you know, yes, you would go to the talks, but the best part was just the one-off conversations you were having while going into another session. Okay, well, in chat, it might just be someone said something in chat, and like the chat is having more fun.
That's just the Tuesday. That's just the Tuesday for you now. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the chat is just there. Everyone's vibing out. And I think even those deeper opportunities to engage with other people, maybe you wouldn't kind of see on the day to day, and also making it a bit more reoccurring. So it doesn't have to be an annual dev conference that you're connecting with folks, but it could just be on Tuesdays at 2 EST. But those are the days that you might be able to connect with other devs, or you can connect with other folks that are just like-minded, wanting to have fun, wanting to build. So even that ability for us to feel empowered to create these spaces, like it's kind of, I like it. I like where you're going with this.
Yeah. And it's also so weird. It's so strange that you brought that up, where it's like, what happens if you scale? So I watched the basketball, the NCAA championship game last night, which first half was entertaining, second half not so much. But the thing that I ended up paying attention to in a weird way was the announcers, and like how they talk and how they fill airspace, and how they have like these little inside jokes and they know each other. And then also watching like the halftime show, and how are people interacting, including like at one point noting that one of the dudes started making notes on a little pad of paper of like something that he wanted to say. And then there was like this, if anyone watched it, there was this really bad segment where Charles Barkley was just like calling people who watch the clips idiots. Like it was like bad. And like one of the guys is like, well, that was worthless. And then like they went to commercial. And so like, but there's a little bit of like seeing the how the sausage is made in the meta. And you start to, when you're in this seat, I found myself paying attention to not what they were saying, but how they were handling it.
Yeah. I'm gonna get you hooked on an Instagram/TikTok account that will like blow your mind for certain aspects of like the behind the scenes. It's called Behind the Broadcast. And for like events like this, they'll do like, they had a video that I saw on Instagram that was the run of cable from a camera in the arena at the NCAA championship out to the production truck. And they followed the line like the whole way. Like it goes out, and it changes cable types like 4 times. And goes through different boxes and goes outside, and then it goes out, you know, down the street, and then it's going around fences up to this area where it finally feeds into the production truck. And then inside the production truck, it looks like here with way more stuff, with all the buttons to push and all the different screens with all the different, is wild. But they do all kinds of cool stuff on there where they'll talk about like the production tricks that were being done on a certain thing. I think there's a ton of interesting stuff to learn from broadcast sports. from a
Ooh.
production perspective. Not even like you're talking about the host dynamics. 4 miles long. Yeah, it
That's
does
wild.
happen. It does happen. Um, but there's like I do think like listening to commentators are kind of interesting because uh if you don't know about sports broadcasting, they play different roles, right?
Mhm.
You've got your play-by-play caller. So they're the ones that are like, um, Johnson passes it to Edie, Zach Edie with the dunk, right? He's the guy that's calling literally the action, and he's trying
Mhm.
to both impart the actual action as well as sometimes slightly interpreting what they think happened, or like rules, or the ref made a call and maybe it wasn't right or whatever. Then you've got color commentary, which is typically there to add like the little, like you'll hear the guy say, he shot the 3-pointer and they made it and they go up 85-82, and the color commentator will come in and say, wow, they're really gaining momentum on that shot. We saw they were coming back all game and now they've finally taken their first lead of the game, right? They're adding additional commentary, and oftentimes the play-by-play person needs to really understand everybody's number so that they got the names to
Mhm.
numbers, they by visual representation,
That
who
job seems
is this
hard.
person.
Yeah.
The color commentator needs to do that as well, but what you don't see a lot of times, unless you watch things like behind the broadcast, you'll like they're getting fed stuff on screens, they're getting fed stuff in their ears constantly. So it's not as necessary at all times for the color commentator to be completely up on everything that's going on, but they do have to have a sense of how the game's going so that they can kind of
Yeah.
weave stuff. And then a lot of times in these broadcasts there's also a third person, and like it depends, like sometimes they're like a former coach or something like that. They're like the knowledge person that just has
Yeah.
historical context, and like it's fun.
This is
Yeah, and then I noticed there's also usually the sideline person, and I
Yeah.
noticed it a few times at the NCAA, like the women's game, which was I thought a really good game. At one point, they were talking about like Caitlin Clark's dad having like snacks in his like sweatshirt pocket,
Oh yeah.
and then the sideline commentator literally just like walked up to him and was like, "Hey, what snacks do you have?" And
Yeah.
they got
No,
the
it's
report on what snacks Caitlin Clark's dad had. But it's like it's such a
it's great.
yeah, and there's probably 4 times as many people behind the
And
scenes.
you have the
Telling
studio,
everybody what to do.
studio folks that are still there. So like sometimes they'll get when it's getting close to halftime, they'll like talk to the studio people about the halftime show that's coming up, and like there's just a lot going on. And that's not even getting into the stuff that I get like really interested in, is the visual treatment. There's so much, especially now we're in like the AI and machine learning age of sports, where and I apologize, I know this is a tech show, but I promise you there's a lot of interesting things in those sports
We're talking
situations.
about sports tech.
But I'm talking about
This isn't sports,
the
this is
broadcast
sports
side of
tech.
it, right? Like there's a lot to learn just there. And it's like, how do they show the score? Do they move where the score shows up? How do they show that for basketball, the shot clock? More importantly now, as I was saying, with this machine learning and AI and like cameras tracking the movement of individual players to the degree where you can replicate that in real time, what kind of data are they showing and how are they presenting it to you? And like they know that this person has a certain percentage of shooting from that exact spot on the floor. Like we've never had that in the past. That's a recent, within the past 10 years, past 5 years situation, to know that when this person is uncontested from that spot on the floor, they make it 76% of the time, and they can just recall that in an instant, right?
Mhm.
And it's just, to me, and they don't have to do anything. The computer will feed that to them. Like they know where the person took the shot from. The computer quickly goes and looks up the stat for how well they shoot from that spot, and they have the data in front of them to just push on screen and say something about it. And that to me is just mind blowing.
I know we were
I have a
doing.
weird question for you. Okay. Sorry, I had a weird question around that for you. If you
Yeah,
don't mind me going first.
go for it.
Here.
And then we'll go back to Bianca
so-
immediately.
So like we have that for AI for these the professional teams, but in some stance, like that was there. Like people were doing the analytics and it was there, and now AI is just making it easier and giving you more. do you see a world where like high school and amateur stuff is like you just throw a webcam and all of a sudden you have all that tracking and like
I mean,
you
absolutely.
have like full analytic? I mean, that's going to be wild. Like in high school, you're going to know like somebody's shooting percentage.
They're already
like,
they're already doing some of it in the bigger high schools.
Crazy.
Like they're already doing it in bigger high schools. You've had swing analysis in baseball for a long time with, you know, with at first with fancy cameras and that sort of thing, and now like you could do it with an iPad probably now, like golf swings, baseball swings. They have basketballs that you can like, it'll track whether you made it or not. Like there's all kind, you can do this with iOS and Android applications by just pointing the camera at whatever it is that you're doing, and it'll track whether it went in or not, right? So it's already a thing. Like it's already a thing even the average person can do with the device that they already own, which is wild. Yeah, it's already there, but yeah, it's gonna get even cooler. So now back to Bianca.
Thanks for that heads up, Scorchmark.
So I think what you're saying, it just gave me ideas, just lots of ideas around, you know, even this aspect of community, bringing folks together, even just thinking about this aspect of sports tech. You know, we did a builder workshop around fan experiences, but even diving a little bit deeper down this like sports tech rabbit hole, and just like what's being built, who's building it, even just seeing more applications of, you know, things like Twilio and Segment, and like how do we, you know, like how do all of these things play together. But even this aspect, as when you were talking about the role that different commentators had, when one thing that stuck out to me is that different people are experiencing the game in different ways. Like there's a lot of different, somebody is coming to that game just to know what snacks Caitlin Clark's dad, you know, has. And someone's coming to the game because they want to hear about the, the figures. I think sports has become so culturally, like sports is so timeless to me. Sports is just such a culturally like present thing that we will see regardless of the time period. So I think it's kind of interesting to see, well, how do you adapt? You can adapt to different spaces or different audiences while still preserving, like, people are still coming for the game. How they experience the game might look different, but in essence, the game is going to be the game, right?
Do you want to see a really interesting example of that? What you're talking about? So let me go make sure I got this right. This is live, not right now, but at the time that it was being watched, it was live. This is an NFL game in Toy Story. So it's being played on a little like toy football field, but this is real data. This is actually like,
these are real players. This isn't like a video game.
It's a little delayed. Like it was a little delayed. I watched this live. I love these things, but like, it's a little delayed, but not as much as you would think. And like, we're talking like within seconds of the play happening, within probably 10 seconds of the play happening, maybe 15, you're seeing that play rendered with accuracy. Like, where was the ball thrown? You know, where were the people on the field? How fast did they throw it? Like, all this kind of stuff is accurately represented because of that's what I'm talking about, where they've got trackers on the players, like in their uniform. They've got, I believe, tracker on the ball, but like you can create a whole new representation relatively live of this thing that's going on in real life. And now you're in Toy Story. To me, that's just,
they
there's
did one
something amazing.
They did one with
Nickelodeon, the Super Bowl,
too.
right?
Yeah, the Nickelodeon. Yeah, they did something with Super Bowl, and I will say the ability for just like that new tech to expand who can enjoy a game, like that to me is, you know, a lot of the just you could see a lot of the young girls getting super excited about just like, oh,
here's the Nickelodeon, and it's wild because obviously with current tech for, you know, broadcast and video, you can do things like make stuff appear that's not actually there in the real world. You can do things like, I believe they're going to show a touchdown at some point here. Like you can turn the end zone into the slime zone. It's just it's very interesting, like what you can do. This one's less about this one's less about needing the data. It's more, how do you take how do you take something that's intended for a particular audience
Yeah.
and make it more approachable? Like, there's nothing fundamentally different here. They're still playing football. They're still
Still a yellow
showing a
line, it's
down
just a little
marker.
slime on it.
Yeah, they're showing a down marker, but it's got slime on it. You know, they're showing graphics for the score, but they've got that Nickelodeon touch to them. They're graphics like this when they're talking about, when in between plays, right? They'll show a graphic and talk about it. It's usually about a player, or, you know, in this case, maybe about ownership or whatever. But like here, kids wouldn't get that, but Krusty Krab, sure.
Oh, they know. Plankton and Mr. Krabs have had beef forever.
But like they need to still do similar things that they would do in a broadcast. The reason they show that graphic and talk over it is because there's literally nothing happening at the moment that's interesting. And they don't want to do these things all the time, right? So the little blimp comes down and makes it the red zone, right? It's just it's the kind of stuff to mix it up for a different attention span.
It also, even that emphasis on, I love in chat, like that aspect around like interactive branding, because I do think there can often be a push on personalization, but folks not thinking about like personalization is so you can interact more, right? Like that, the goal is still something that like you engage with, whether it's watching it or whether it's like having an opinion, and like, even the way that all these tools can show up. So I think even that aspect of, like slime is going to be relevant to a certain group, and even understanding, oh, this is where personalization might make more sense. This is where it might make more sense to, I guess maybe the thoughts that are coming up to me is just like moving beyond personalization, but finding a nice middle ground with like, you know.
You see what it says next to
the slime zone?
Jimmy Garoppolo. It says he's all that instead of like any sort of stats next to it. It just says he's all that, which, okay, great. Not anymore, but he was then. He's like a backup quarterback now. He fell fast. He got hurt. He fell fast after that. But like what I take out of this kind of thing, where it's like, this is clearly repackaging something that we would normally give to one audience. We're finding ways to make it approachable for another audience. And to me, I'm always thinking like, how do we do that for programming? How do we do that for tech? How do we do that for robotics? How do we do that for food? How do we do that for anything? Because the more of this that exists, we were talking earlier, like just tying it back to earlier things, right? You're going to have people in your chat, in your community that are not programmers. They are going to show up to your stream and they're going to want to watch it. The more of Slime Zone, which is about to happen, like the more things like Slime Zone, you know, whatever the tech equivalent is of like this thing that connects that tech topic to a broader audience, that's where the growth and like fun happens. And I don't have any answers. Like I've been watching stuff like this and thinking, how does this represent itself? Like, what would this mean in the programming world? I don't know. I don't necessarily have an answer, but I think.
I think there's also something else going on there, which is like a kid's not going to go watch that on their own, right? That's going to be like a parent who wants to watch the game, wants to get their kid involved by showing them this feed that's just like a little more fun for them. And then it's a way of like relating and sharing what you love, because otherwise a broadcast might be boring. So it almost feels like one of the things that we get to do on stream is share what we love and get people excited about the things we love, and like share that with them. And so it almost feels, it's like a little bit of a different dynamic, but it's like, how do you distill the excitement and the love that we have for the things we do, like for building, like for Bianca it was like, music or trying new things. For me it was, tea and whatever. Like, how do we distill those things so that people get that experience of love and engagement?
Yeah, I mean, this is like literally the book is getting it's getting so much like even this aspect of, I think before we used to anchor in on language, right? Oh, are we all talking the same language? And even moving beyond language, what are the visuals that we're using? What are the sounds that we're using? And I think there was often this like anchoring on language, but even this aspect of, humanity, personality. There's so many other tools that you can kind of connect with people. Yes. So I don't know. I think this is like really exciting stuff. And even this aspect that, yeah, people are going to ingest information in different ways. And one of the things that actually came up to me is I was talking to a friend and I was like, I never considered myself a biohacker, but I do a lot of biohacking things. Like over the past couple of years, I've just been really thinking about just wellness and kind of different supplements and things like that. And I'm like, but I wouldn't call myself a biohacker, but the ways in which I'm, you know, challenging my body or thinking about the ways in which things interact with my body, like one would call it, biohacking. And I think before there was an emphasis on language as being a tool to help us understand, but it's like, how much can we find the middle ground in the things that we're talking about and the ways in which it's relevant to a different audience? So I think even that aspect of we're actually probably saying the same thing. Everyone understands drama. Everyone understands adversaries. And maybe the adversary someone understands is Plankton and Mr. Krabs. But for some folks, they're like, what is it? The Cowboys and the Niners, like, they might have a little beef. And so, but again, the language is different, but the concept is still the same. So I think even that aspect of the concepts that we're reminding people of, the ways in which we build, like it's even in language, you see that, right? Like when you're learning another language, it's like it's very similar, or the foods that someone eats or things like that. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's kind of cool, this concept.
It brings me back to like talking about like how do we make it so we can just show up on stream, right? That was one of the things we said earlier about like a growth place. If we care about what we're doing and it's exciting for us, it's gonna be easier to show up on stream. Like it's gonna be easier to, like, if someone wants to go do, I don't think I could do a full like show on the band Wilco, but I could, or a full like series of shows, but I could do one and talk about it for like 2 straight hours, easy, no problem. So like find the things that you love and talk about those, and maybe that's what we need to focus on and get everybody excited about the things we love.
Here's the fun part. You've been doing it for almost 2 hours. Yeah. And like I don't like.
We had other plans too. That was the thing. We had other plans today, Brent. Like it
comes full circle.
Wow.
It comes full circle. But that's the thing. And Alex, you're right. It comes down to passion. It comes down to like just planning to talk about something that you're interested in, or bringing somebody on the show that is going to talk about something that they're interested in, make it relevant to you. And like that's my role as a guest in this situation, is to bring what I'm interested in, bring what I'm passionate about. And like ideally you provide some structure. Do we have Bianca's social links? Bianca, do you want to share social links? Or are you social tapped out?
Like, no, I didn't. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. So
I should get chat commands added for like our
so
socials.
I was actually thinking about this today. I was like, do I even have a Twitch account? Is this time for a new era?
Yeah, you should probably create one of those.
So that'll be my thing.
So you create one of those, but then like we also probably I think like the thing right now is like to have a like Linktree or similar, like if you've got a favorite flavor of Linktree.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of those now, but like, find your flavor of Linktree, and then we'll have an exclamation point Alex.
This is exciting.
We'll have exclamation point Alex, and we'll have exclamation point Bianca, and we'll pretend the producer doesn't exist. We'll continue to do that. But the two of y'all on your show, well, actually, there'll probably be an exclamation point Brent, because if we're gonna do it for everybody and I'm gonna stream here, we should have mine too. But if you have a social that you wanted to drop, we could drop it in chat.
Okay, I got y'all. I'll see. I will say I just haven't been
Stay tuned, come back next week. Is that the prompt for Bianca's social? Stay tuned, come back next week.
See,
you heard it, Scorchmark. Make sure you're following.
Yeah, you can my socials are all my Twitch, same thing. So I'm easy. My favorite's GitHub though. I think that's my favorite social network. That's the one I like posting on.
There better be a Brent, or I could get banned. Yeah, I'll have to add it. I'll have to add mine as well. I can't remember. I think I have Linktree. Do I have a link tree?
I
Right.
like bento. That's the one I like.
Link tree
Yeah.
/ would it be Chef
The
Brent?
bento one it was cool. It was like, it looked dynamic.
Another Rashab and Cloud
Reddit.
shout out. He found that for me.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, even as you were talking, Brent, I'm like, oh, I have folks in the sports scene. I'm like, oh, we could talk about just like, I have someone who used to be the former, what is it? She used to do fan experiences over at the NBA. And just like, I'm curious about what was happening in that land, and just like the intersection between like tech and what they were excited about, what they were like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
So I do think, even as you were talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much there. And even this space of just like unpacking what's exciting, and where does it intersect with the things that we're passionate about, which is technology, building, scaling, things like that. So I like it.
Do y'all want to see? Here's a behind the scenes. So I'm gonna add mine since I found the link tree. But like,
Okay.
this is my software for behind the scenes kind of stuff. So you'll see things like I got Ridwell video 1, Ridwell video up to 9. That was what we were doing last time. On a previous show. But like, yeah, I can come in here and let's say I'll add a new action, and I'm gonna call this one Brent Socials, and then I'm going to put that in a different group. We're going to call it Socials, and then in here I can just add we're going to send a chat message to chat. So I go Twitch chat, send message to channel, and send it from the bot, and I'll say you can find Chef Brent at, and then drop that in there. And then I could test it to make sure it works. So I could do core, add a test. I don't need to pass any variables to it. And I could do test trigger, and you'll see it pop up. You should see it pop up in chat from Twilio bot. And now I just need to add that to a command in chat. So I'll go over to this commands tab.
All right.
And I'll right click. Now you can see what all the ones are. So like if I did presenter 1.
It's a little small, Brett.
Chat. I know. I actually can't zoom that. I would love that to be a feature that this app would support, but it doesn't. But like you can see, like if you do presenter 1, it returns Alex with pronouns. But like I can go in here and say add. We're gonna call this, what is it? Brent. Give it a command here, Brent. And then I just have to pick what that triggers. Actually, no, I don't. That's it. So you can say who it applies to and all that sort of stuff. But all I need is that. Come back over to the actions up here, add a trigger. Commands, command triggered. Pick Brent.
Okay, hadn't worked yet.
And now it should. Should be hooked up.
Okay.
Scorch mark. Let's do this.
Try it again, Scorch.
Try it again.
Scorch. I don't know how much time delay we have, but we're about to find out, I suppose. It varies whether someone's watching on mobile or if they're watching on desktop, and also whether my machine is cooking or.
Gotcha.
I'll give it a shot.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah, it works now. And then you can set cooldowns, but like that's how easy it is for me to add stuff behind the scene. Oh, we can't do it in the same 30 seconds. Got you, Scorched. Yeah, I've got the like cooldown so people don't spam it. But yeah, that's the like we can add anything, man. Now that you've seen how easy it is, and that's just like one type of trigger. That's just from a chat command. But like anything you can think of, pretty much we can do in that software. It's pretty wild.
Okay.
But yeah.
Can I get a like Mad Money Kramer style board of just funny noises?
Yeah.
My stream deck.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Or can we?
Totally.
We're creating our jingle. Is it the stream? A stream friend.
Oh, the stream friends jingle.
Stream friends.
It just needs to do just that part. Just stream friends on like you just do stream friends.
Stream friends. Yeah. Yeah. And then so that's like that.
We have a lot of work before our next stream.
Great, of course. So we have to complete stream friends.
Stream friends. Hook it up to a chat command.
Okay, stream friends jingle, but then we'll have AI potentially help us to build that song. That could be a thing. You know, we'll have some assistant, so and then we got.
So I have all kinds. I have all kinds of stuff that's like hooked up from.
Okay.
Basically, this is from learnings from Signal TV, like from the big events that we've done, like having the ability to in a given session, just exclamation point session, what are these people talking about right now, and having it, you know, spit out and have the presenters that are on camera, and it's fun. There's a lot of stuff you can do with all this stream tech stuff.
Nice.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll make a song for Streambot. Streambot. Bot. Because Streambot has to have a different vibe than like Stream Friends. And like bot. It's like, okay, I'm done.
Twilio bot needs a like avatar, needs a mascot.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay. Got it.
I mean, we could do a little Eileen in there.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Scorch told us, you know, we can make some background music. So wow.
Yes.
This is exciting.
Suno. I wanted to try Suno AI. I think that's the one.
Okay, so Alex, I'm not going to commit to this, but maybe we are committing to this. Are we going to make a song on the next stream?
I don't know about the next stream because I got some ideas around other AI stuff to build, but like, let's do that on stream. Maybe it's next stream. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it doesn't. In my mind, I'm
on
like,
a stream.
On a stream, in my mind,
you have a topic to pull from at any time now. You could make the song on stream. Like you just put it in your back pocket and like,
wow.
You have a week where you need a thing.
Or make a song.
Take that thing.
I already have that in. We have a whole stream planning table. I already have that in there, which is just playing with AI tools. And the first one I thought about was
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Just like a little behind the scenes action right there.
Yeah.
Dun, dun. Go shout out to chat. Shout out to our stream friends. Yeah.
Scorch, I'm so happy you hung out today. I appreciate you.
This was awesome. I like this. Oh yeah. Oh, Scorch. Okay, so Scorch. Okay. Yes.
What author credit?
Author. Wow.
I love it. I love it.
Okay. I see the vision.
I love it.
I see the vision. No, this is good. This is good. Like, okay, Scorch is fine. All right. Cool.
We're just gonna put your little emoji logo thing.
Yeah.
This is like this has been pretty good for me, even though we didn't cover any of what I came on for. Like, I appreciate.
You're coming back next week.
I appreciate the way Bianca set it up to go that direction, and something I said, something I did, just went. We did one of those tangents, and I'd probably bring it back to like it was talking about the in-person stuff and like how it's different.
We were talking about blogs. The blogs was gonna go to a blogs, and we were gonna take a trip down memory lane with some of Brent's blogs.
Yeah.
But then the blogs took us to a faraway land.
We went blog to in person, and then in person to video corollary, talking about how streaming works, diving into different aspects of that, shooting off into like broadcast tech. Like if we were on one of those shows where I was going to go on for another couple hours, we'd pop that stack back all the way and we'd continue on. But we don't do that here. Here. That's too much time. But I'm happy to come back at some point next week after, whenever you want me to come back, I'll come back and we'll do the thing. We'll do the thing that we had planned on doing.
No, this was awesome.
Scorch, such an interactive example of exactly what Brent was talking about. I mentioned the tangents earlier. Like this happens a lot. Your best laid plans become next week's best laid plans.
Maybe we need to have an AI bot that can track the stack and the tangents.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Like one of those things that sits there and like is doing transcriptions, but like maybe like a higher level of that where it's tracking topics.
Transcribe and then get the topic and then know when the topic shifted, which would be
and kind of figure it out if it's branching, and then can detect if it comes back. That would be really cool. That would be a cool build. I'd be really interested in that. If you could throw a video file at it too, so like you could look at past streams and kind of chart the like almost like the mind map of what was talked about in that stream. So you could go back and like, these are all the topics, and it doesn't have any of the detail. It's just extrapolated out to higher level topics, but it'd be cool to see the path. And if it comes back, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, I even think about it even on like sermons and stuff, like folks, I'm bringing up sermons. My dad was a minister. But like, even just kind of that journey, you're like, okay, I'm trying to follow. Like, where are we going? We went here. We went over there, but even just kind of like, well, how does this all fit together? So I kind of like it. I like that. Okay, so we'll add it to our show notes.
If anyone wants to see a masterclass in this and a comedian, Mike Birbiglia is like the best at bringing things back. And but yeah, I'm like, it's great. Any of these things where you can do that, it just like, it puts such a nice bow on the end of it of like, oh yeah. So nice.
Love it. It's
That's
great.
good.
It's great, y'all.
It's good. I should leave the two of y'all to like, do your thing to wrap it up.
Do your outros.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like,
we never had a guest on.
I've talked a lot, so I mean, like, this is practice for your future guests, but like, typically on a show, like, I mean, it's your show, but like, a lot of times you'll say, thank you to the guest, and then you'll tie a bow up on your content.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brett,
there you go.
for joining us on
It was so great having you here. Now leave.
You are so great, amazing, Brett. No, seriously.
Listen to these liars.
Okay, no, this is from
I'm
the
glad you
heart.
had that bleep going there. No, but like seriously, Brent, you make us look good every week. Not only are you just like an amazing coworker and person to like be able to interact with and talk to and bounce things off of, like you inspired us to do this. Every week you make us look good. Like you mentioned streaming, you want it to be like you just show up. With you, we literally just show up. Like I was thinking about my stream checklist. It's like pick Twilio swag, make my hair not look crazy. Like that's it. And then I'm here. So like, thank you so much for everything that you do, not just in the stream, but as a coworker. And like we really appreciate you, Brent. And thank you so much for joining us on the stream.
I had fun. I will come back. I probably won't want to do it every time, but like I am always available. My voice is always available. We talked about having my like little chef bot thing always available. So yeah, I mean, my voice can be a part of the stream. My face can be part of the stream too. But like we'll find ways to get me in here.
Totally. And I think even just like what you represent around just going back into passion, excitement, and I think I hope that all our future guests kind of have that same passion and excitement about things that they're enjoying. So I do think it just kind of sets a tone around like the guests or the folks that come on the show, like be excited about something and what's on your heart. So I think it's going to be really cool just that we keep the spirit and energy of Chef Brent, just whoever comes on the stream. But yeah, Brent, it was super awesome hanging with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for just the friends that you brought along on the stream too. So It was such a blast hanging with you today.
Well, y'all are the best. Thanks for hanging out, Scorched and Lita and Rishab and everybody else that hopped in. If you sent a chat message, if you didn't send a chat message, we love you all the same. I appreciate it. I'm gonna drop and let these folks tell you about next week or something, because that's what they do. Bye.
Yeah.
Cool.
That was fun.
That was.
I have so much fun with you, Bianca, but it was fun having another voice in there.
I agree. I also feel like we learned more about each other as well. Like I feel like it was cool to even learn about ourselves, learn about the journey, take a pause. We just completed stream 6. So we're going to lucky number 7 next week. So next week, what is it? Tuesdays at 2 EST?
Twilio Tuesdays at 2.
Twilio Tuesdays at 2. Twilio Tuesdays at 2. This is great. Well, fantastic. Thank you again for joining us on A/B testing, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
What you got?
Bye, everybody. No, I was just going to say, I'll see you next week.
Okay, cool.